Good afternoon, Tennessee Tech. My name is Javier Huaracha, and today I'm here with Dr. Pritom. How are you doing today, Dr. Pritom?
Yeah, I'm good.
Is there anything you think students should know about you?
My last name is how they pronounce. I think that's something, they'll be confused. So my name is Pritom. So I think the it's not Pritom, it's just Pritom. And the another thing is I am in cybersecurity. So if anyone is interested in cybersecurity research, either grad student or undergrad, I will be happy to talk if you're interested in cybersecurity and data science.
What subject in school did you enjoy the most?
So in computer science, I think probability. I think probability distribution based theorem. So conditional probability. I think those are like pretty fascinating at the time when I was doing computer science in my undergrad. Like anything related to math at that time was more fascinating to me. And then other than that, I think data structure is another subject in the core computer science curriculum.
What do you enjoy the most about your job?
So there are two perspectives of it. I see it like one is the environment. I think I love being in Tennessee Tech with so many people around who are accommodating and more like considering in terms of my colleagues and the environment, like administrators. The other part is I think as part of my job, I do teaching and research and also some sort of service. But in terms of my work, research is the more part of my work. And I think doing mentoring to the students, I think that's the part I enjoy the most, how to make them more independent researcher and train them towards that goal.
Are there any recent innovations in technology that intrigue you?
The development and advancement in generative AI, especially ChatGPT with Google Bard, I think those are the things that are, I believe it's revolutionary and it's gonna change this year or in the future, like how we go about education. Like as educator, I think we need to be adaptive. We need to incorporate those tools as part of the journey of the education of our students. And we cannot just ban it out. I see it from a perspective, it's a tool that students going to use at some point, and then how we can incorporate them in their education and better use them as a part of their journey or learning journey rather than just copy pasting what is generated by the AI, right? To make policy that help complement those tools to add value to their educational journey.
What would you say to a student dealing with failure?
I think every one of us at some point has some sort of failure, like being a student, being a faculty, or even if you are in a higher position, let's say president, right? Like everyone has to deal with failure to some extent, and I think that's one of the topics that we don't talk about often, because we talk about success, we share that, and people embrace it, but then very few people who are in your close circle, probably that's the people that know about your failure, and it's part of an experience. So if it's failure, just embrace it, learn from it. I would say that's an experience that you learned, and maybe going forward that will help you to some extent. If it's a continuous like pattern of failures that you are dealing with and you can't kind of tackle it individually, I think from a student perspective, I would say there are resources around you. There are counseling, there are advisors and professors who are there to help you. So just talk about it, be outspoken about your failures, and there might be some solutions out of it.
What advice would you give to computer science students?
I think being a computer scientist, or like if you study there, at some point whatever you are learning is gonna be obsolete. Like whatever I went through and got in my undergrad, like as materials, I think many of those are obsolete these days, and you have to be adaptive, you have to be flexible and open-minded. I think that's what will make you successful in the long run and keep you relevant, I would say, because the technology is going to change faster than you think in computer science. So as a computer science student, if you even graduate, just keep up with the new things or make yourself relevant.
What motivated your decision to pursue computer science?
So I think that's a good question. So in my undergrad, I haven't even thought before I went to computer science. I was not thinking like I would pursue computer science, because I did my undergrad in Bangladesh, and it's different from here a little bit. So you cannot just select a particular subject, you have to get admitted there with the admission entrance exam. And the exam is on the engineering, like you have multiple subjects, and if you ranked higher, then you pick that subject. So I would say I was thinking about engineering, pursuing my degree in engineering, but not sure if I would end up being selected in the computer science because it's one of the top subjects in that university, and eventually I did. And that's the first time I got my own computer after I got admitted into the computer science program. So yeah.
What is something you like about tech?
The student-centric atmosphere here, like I think whenever it comes to a decision making, let's say we want to build a lab or a classroom, always the student first thinking comes through in that meeting. Even in that kind of is fascinating. Like we are here because the students are here, because we are serving the students, and if they are not here, then we have no job. So I think that's mindset is a right approach in the university.
If it were possible, is there something you would like to say to your younger self?
If I can go back in time, I'd probably advise to be more, like a little bit more outspoken than what my younger self has been. So that's something would help me like doing my work today. And my close circles know like I'm a little bit like introvert type, and that was my type. And then from there, being an educator and talking and interacting with lots of people is definitely a challenging thing for me in the beginning phase. And I think in my younger self, if I can go back, I would just like advise him to be more outspoken, a little bit more extrovert, making connections and stuff like that. That would help my job a lot easier today.
A lot of computer scientists tend to be a little bit introverted. Is there any advice you would give them on trying to be a little more outspoken?
I think it's a soft skill, right? Like it's not like you will do bad in your academia or anything like that. But then when you go to outside world, maybe those making or building connections will help, and definitely that can create opportunities that would never come to you if you just do not speak to people. If you are in a, like, let's say in a conference or anything like that, just push for that. Even if you are introvert, like try to change it, because that's how world works. And if you just keep things to yourself, that will not gonna help. So even if I know lots of my friends and other people are going through it, but it's challenging, but you have to take some work to do to develop yourself. This is a soft skill, I think, which is indeed needed.
Is there anything you would encourage students to try?
If you have a hobby or something like that, pursue it. Like either it's painting, gardening, or like playing video games or sports. Like take it seriously and pursue it outside of your career or even education, because that's something, even from those, you might create a community and connections, and that might give you opportunities that you never would have encountered if you haven't tried those things. Outside of your career or even education, always pursue some sort of extracurricular things or any hobbies that you really passionate about.
What OS do you like the most?
There is no specific preference. I always love to have both at the same time. Like even if I have a Mac right now in my office, I have a Windows at my home. So I figured that in computer science, there are applications which in some cases use better with Linux and Mac, versus in other applications runs better in Windows. So I always love to have both, so I can just try both and see whichever for a particular scenario works better to provide instruction to whenever I teach or do something in research.
Outside of computer science, what classes do you recommend students take?
History is something that intrigues me. We need to know our history, at least the recent 1,000 years, like how we came to this 2020s from, like, let's say 1,000 years, right? Like, because I think fundamentally as humans we haven't changed that much. It's just the technology and tools that are around us, and then maybe the education, but we need to know how we evolved, and that's how we can grow further, and taking the learnings from history, like what helped us to reach here and what didn't. I think those realization is important to go further and contribute for this work.
How do you go about making a difficult decision?
So I think everyone every day has to go through decision making, right? Like sometimes it's the degree of difficulty you can ask. It varies, but then we have to do decision making. Either we are a student, we are a faculty, or we are in any other fields. If it's more like academic decision making that has other stakeholders involved in it, so definitely I try to be democratic. That's what my policy is. Like I try to talk with everyone and talk about their preferences and what impacts that can bring into the table when I am making a decision. So democracy is something that I follow. But if it's my personal thing that can only impact myself, and then I might talk about it to my close circles and try to take their judgments. But eventually I make the call because I want to make myself accountable if something goes wrong. So I always follow that. Like it's my call. What I feel is okay, given the scenario and given the data that I have at this point, or at that point. And so that's finally to kind of hold myself accountable if I'm not taking the right decision. So I can just blame myself and not others.
That's the end of our interview for today. Thank you so much for being here,
Thank
Dr.
you, Javier. Yeah.